Here at Simply Garden, with over 50 years of gardening experience, I believe in keeping things simple and productive while gardening in your own backyard. Well, a hot, good evening, early evening, and this is July 5th, and we are going to be doing some switching out in the garden here. It's been very, very, very hot, as a lot of parts of the country, and even some of my friends over in England have been talking about the same thing. But it's time to pull some things out of the garden and replant for the fall, and get some space usage here that's kind of going to waste here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take out the old pea plants we had here. Had these here planted back in first part of April. Didn't do quite as well as I like to see. Some disease got them. As you can see, it just didn't hold up well. Could have been a virus in the soil, because all the peas in this raised bed here, which is basically about 6 feet by 14 feet long, did not do well at all. I got other beds that did beautiful. So who knows? Anyways, we're going to rip out everything out of here, and we have a zucchini growing on the other side here, coming along very nicely. They like the heat. They're taking off quite well. But with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and start working on putting some beans in here for the fall, so we can get use of the space. And this is kind of also a lesson for those that have smaller gardens. They don't think they have a lot of space, but you can also interplant a lot of things if you get the crops going sooner. As far as the spring crops that have a short season, peas basically last about 70 days from the time you plant to the time you get them out. And then you could still, depending where you are located in the country, in Zone 5, southern New Hampshire, we can get a crop of beans in here, which take about 65 days for maturity. The variety I'm going to be planting here is called, by Harris Seed, called Bean Crockett. And like to say here, they take about 60 days from seeding to where you start getting beans. So it's the first 7th of July. By the early part of September, I'll be picking beans. And I'll do another crop. If you can see, there's a trellis further out with beans on there also. I'm planting squash, and planting with butternut squash. Butternut squash will not take up the whole bed, so I'll go ahead and plant beans on the other side of that trellis there. And those beans will mature probably around, I'd say, the middle, end of September, which will last well into October. And if we get any quick frost, I always have a few blankets handy, and just throw some blankets, or you can use spun polyester rime, which is that white fabric. But I'm going to go ahead and start working on cleaning this guy out. Once again, nothing gets wasted here. This all goes to the compost bin. And then we'll go ahead and get it trenched up for beans. And away we go. I'm probably going to still leave some of the good peas behind. Just as long as I can get room to get a wide trench in for beans seeds, I'm good to go. It's kind of amazing. I mean, you got 95-degree heat. That's sure a lot of you do in your gardens right now. Unfortunately, some things kind of get left behind, and that is weeding. Actually, when I do have a lot of, when the peas are ripening, I tend not to weed them when they get to that ripe point, because what happens is you try to pull the crabgrass out that you didn't get, maybe grew earlier, that wasn't big enough to pull out earlier, it wasn't there, you end up ripping out the plants. So sometimes you gotta kind of let things, just leave things alone and get them when you do the total final cleanup. Like I say, this will not take long at all to get this ready to go here. I got a few sunflowers, which I'll actually leave these just seeded themselves here. They're fine. We'll let them enjoy their space. They're not going to interfere too much with the beans, so I'm not worried about that. Besides, the bees will enjoy that immensely. They enjoy the pollen on the sunflowers. Yeah, I think we're going to pull this whole thing out. There's not much worth us saving. It's going to be more of an aggravation having it in the way. Take the trellis down, roll up the nylon trellis nylon system here, and we'll see you next year. Actually, when I get done with this, I'm hoping to go pick some more black raspberries and some blueberries. Also, see, I need to start spraying the zucchini, because before I know it, these things will start getting attacked by insects. It's a powder. It's a white powder. I just spray in it. It's for organic gardens, and it's very, very effective to keep down any kind of boring squash bugs. Just as quick and easy as that. Doesn't take long. I think this heat wave is almost done. It's supposed to be done. They're saying some rain maybe tomorrow morning. We'll certainly take it. And only in the around 80 tomorrow, so I think a lot of part of the country is going to start cooling down. It's amazing how a lot of this stuff is decomposed nicely. When I first had this, there was big hunks of corn stalks and everything in there, but most is pretty well broken down. Quite impressive. And we'll get those pieces cleaned out a little later on the air side. They also failed, but we won't worry about that right now. We're focusing on getting this set up so we can get beans planted in here right away. Okay, so we're just going to rake this up a little bit and give it a nice little some organic fertilizer. Any kind of organic fertilizer just will do well. Has a typical balance. Has some decent nitrogen and potassium in there. Okay. My apologies, I did not look to see what the mixture was. I think it's higher on the nitrogen and a little lighter in the middle number, which is a phosphorus, I believe, and the potassium at the end is a little higher. So I fertilize, now. Sometimes I don't always fertilize, but oh, look at the nice nice big earthworms here. Isn't this awesome? Beautiful. I don't know if you can see them yet or not. It's good to see that. Stick them back underneath. Let them go back to enjoying the earth. Anyways, like I was saying, a lot of times when I plant my first crop, I don't put too much fertilizer in it because it's earlier spring, and sometimes the fertilizer, especially for when it's cooler out, can actually affect the germination sometimes of some of the seeds. But now it's gotten warmer out, and also the soil has been pretty heavily worked over with the heat. It needs a little extra nitrogen in it, so a little bit's not gonna, a little extra fertilizer mixtures to give it an extra little extra push, boost, so to speak. Okay. All right, we'll get a nice wide hole marking in here, and should be ready to plant. Another worm there. Wow, they're really doing well. Good to see that. Sign of good organic material in here from being composted. And I like doing a wider trench. Plant the bean seeds a little bit more, about 2 or 3 across the trench bottom. It tends to give a little more impressive yield, helps support the plants, and because raised beds, you can squeeze more in there. Like I said, once again, I had peas in here. Planted peas on the other side, on the trellis also for some height. And then we go ahead and plant some beans for the fall, early fall. And I got two plantings out of one bed. Now I put an inoculant in there with the beans. Inoculant is a black powder substance that helps with pulling in the nitrogen. Beans have little as well as peas have nitrogen fixing nodules on this root system. This inoculant helps increase that and helps them actually pull in more nitrogen off the air. So we're going to go ahead and I do like a little thick slurry of it. Just going to force that out of there. There we go. Just so it's lightly coated, and that also helps increase the yield. I guess I just like to kind of plant a couple inches across and a couple inches between each seed, and just like that. And we'll give them a good watering afterwards, so seeds don't dry out because they're already starting to swell up. You can see they're getting all wrinkled from sitting in the moisture for a little bit. It's always kind of a guess how much I'll need, since I'm pre-soaking these a little bit. But for doing this so many years, I kind of know the size of the container and how high to put the seeds, and just how many seeds I'm going to need for this planting here. I think it's going to come out pretty well, just right. That's another thing I've learned. I like to do kind of the same thing repetitively. As some say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And just get a system down, stick with it. Always willing to adjust, learn as you go. For 50 years I've been gardening here. Not here 50 years, 35 years here. You learn things and you get better hopefully over time. That's part of the challenge of gardening. You have some failures, and you don't give up. You just adjust something, as I say, is always next year. But my goal is to have enough things growing variety so we can always have something to pick for harvesting, and then of course always giving away to some people. If you got too much, always willing to share. That's fun. And then of course always being willing to have enough to freeze for the winter. Maybe just throw those in there. Here we go. And we'll give the usual about 1.5 inches of covering. Yeah, but like I say, I always like to have enough to share, enough for winter time, freezing them. Very simple, easy to do. Probably need to do a video of preparing beans. How easy it is. And this 14-foot row, get a lot of beans out of it. Here we go. Tamp it down. And we'll move the hose over here, give it a nice thorough watering. And it's simply planting beans nice and quick. Cleaned up the bed. I'll get to that in a moment, get that cleaned out on the other side. And that's getting beans ready for the fall.